Hi, and welcome to the video for exercise 3 on CSS transitions. In this particular exercise, we're going to be working with one of the other characteristics that can be used in CSS transitions. The first, of course, was the property, and second was duration, and you did that in the previous two exercises. In this particular exercise, we're going to work with the transition timing functions. And in order to do that, I've got an exercise set up which is called easing, because that is another word that is used for these timing functions, is the amount of ease or the type of ease that's applied to the way they transition. Before we go into actually opening up the files and looking at the HTML and starting to work on the CSS for this, I wanted you to see what it is that we're actually going to be creating. So what we have here is just a heading up here with a text with some instructions. It says hover on the box. And that box is this one that's got the white background with the light gray. And if I mouse over it, you'll notice that all of the boxes transition at different rates, and they move from square to circle and back again when I mouse out. They also move from having a dark gray background to a white background and white text to black text. So we're transitioning a whole bunch of things, but ease is really the one we're focusing on in this exercise. So after this, we're going to go ahead and open up the files. So let's go into that class 2 lab folder that you have and find the easing folder. We'll go ahead and open up that ease.html. And in here, you're going to see that this is similar to what we have been doing. This is the HTML file that we have. It is the H2 that gives us a heading at the top, the paragraph that gives us the instructions, and then we have the boxes that we're going to be creating. There is going to be each of the different types of ease plus a couple of custom types of ease. So the default is going to be just simply ease. Then there's ease in, which it specifies that the transition effect will start slowly. Then there's ease out, which says it will end slowly. So as it's fading out to its end. Ease in out, it says that it will have a slow start and slow end. So it builds like a bell curve where it starts slow and moves faster and then slows again. There is linear, and this has the same speed from start to end. Then I've set up a custom and a negative, and they both use what are called cubic Bezier curves, and they let you define the values as far as how fast and slow they go at certain points. There is a link in the assignment that will take you to a page that has a website that allows you to test out these Bezier curves and see what it looks like before you even apply it. Like in the exercises 1 and 2, we need to create a CSS document for this. So let's go ahead and do that. And just like before, I'm going to go ahead and save this. I need to make sure this goes into my correct folder, so I'm in easing. I am just going to call this easing CSS. And I need to go back to my HTML file just like before and make sure that I link it. So we're going to do link type text CSS rel style sheet href browse, and we're in easing, so we're looking for the easing.css. And make sure we close that up. So now they're connected. But of course we have nothing over here, so we need to actually start putting in some information. So again, let's look at what we have. So the first thing is we have this thing called timings container. That's again just a box that we're going to do this because we're going to actually start and stop all of our easing by mousing in and out over this particular box. So let's go ahead and create that one first. And that was an ID style, so we'll start with that hashtag, and I called it timings underscore container. We'll close that right away. And here are the dimensions and elements that we need for the box itself. We're going to give it a border. We're going to do the shortcut for the border. So we're going to say it's 1 pixel, that it's a solid border, and that it's a lighter, it's a medium shade of gray, so AAA. We're also going to give it a height of 530 pixels. We're going to give it a width also of 530 pixels. So it's a box. Then we're going to give this a margin. We're going to just do straight up margin. And we're going to do 0 on top, auto on both the left and the right. Then we are going to give this a padding because we don't want everything butting up right close to that border that we created. And we're just going to do 10 pixels all the way around. And lastly, we are going to give this a position of relative because we're going to be playing with a few of these positions as we move things around. So we will give this a position of relative. And I'm going to save this. So this is our box. It's not a whole lot to start with, but let's go back to our HTML and see what else we need to put. There is this class box that's applied to each, because what we're going to be doing is we're going to be creating little boxes that roll across the page. So let's go ahead and create these little boxes. This is a class style, so it's just box. Oops, let's make sure we type this correctly. And each box is going to have a bit of text in it, so we're going to give it a font size, and I'm going to give it a font size of 12 pixels. They're each going to have a height, and they're square, so they are going to be 60 pixels by 60 pixels, so we're going to do a height and a width. So that's our basic box. Because we're going to have a whole row of them, I'm going to give them a margin on the bottom, it's margin bottom, of 10 pixels. We're going to give this one a position of relative also. If I can type it, we can do this. And we're going to give this one a background color. And you're going to see, we're going to do a whole bunch of transitioning stuff. Background, color, and it's 626262. So it's a dark gray. And because it's dark gray, and I said that we were going to have text in here, the font color needs to be something that contrasts, and we're just going to do white. So now we have the big box, and we have the box that it's all contained within. So let's save this and go take a look out in our browser. So let's go to ease.html and go down to preview this in Chrome. Here are each of our boxes. So it's not that fancy yet. Notice nothing happens because we haven't set up those transition effects just like we did in the last one. So I'm going to go back to Dreamweaver and we're going to continue working on our elements. So now we're going to do just a couple more things. Notice, I'm just going to jump back to Chrome here real quick. Notice how this is all on the left-hand side and it's butting right up to it. We're going to add some padding in these boxes and we're going to create another style, and this one's going to be specific to the paragraphs. So it'll be .box space P, it's compound style, and we're going to say text align center. That'll make it nice and centered, and we're going to give it a padding, and that padding is going to be, I don't know, we'll say 4 pixels. This is a fairly small box. So I'm going to save this. I'm going to go back out to the browser and click refresh. And there we go. It's not quite up to the edge, and it's centered nicely now inside of each of these little boxes. We're going to start working now with each of these separate ID styles. So there was ease, ease in, ease out, ease in, out. You get the idea. And we'll do these one at a time, and you're going to be able to see what's happening. So the first one we're going to start with is just ease box, and the reason we're going to do this is going to give us some specifics to this box. We know they're all 60 pixels by 60 pixels, and they're going to have some text in them, but now we're going to specify that we are going to make ease, and it goes into the box class style. So we're going to, now what we're going to do is we're just going to give this a border, and it'll be 1 pixel, solid, and we're going to make this one red. Okay, so that's going to be setting up the descriptor for this first box. Now let's move on to the second box, which is ease in dot box. Open and close my style there. And we're going to give this one a border as well. 1 pixel, solid, and we're going to give this one 0F0. It's a bright, obnoxious green. And we're just going to keep working our way down each of these. So we're going to go to ease out dot box, border 1 pixel, solid, and we're changing our colors for each of these. So this one's blue. Close our style, keep moving. Ease. This one should be in, out, meaning it's the ease in and out, dot box. Open and close that style. Let's see what color border we have on this one. We have bright yellow. Yes, this is going to be a rainbow effect. I'm getting the idea. And then we have linear box. Open and close that one. So this one uses that linear type of ease, meaning it goes the same all the way across. We're going to give this one a border as well. 1 pixel, solid. And you can use whatever colors you want here. I just like the idea of them being different so that you can just, it just helps visually differentiate. And then the last one is this, actually no, sorry, it's the second to the last one. Second to the last one is the first of our 2 custom boxes. So this one is just called custom box. And this one's using that Bezier curve, which means that we can control kind of how fast and slow it's going to go. But for right now, we're just going to give it, oops, I'm sorry, the border just like we have been. 1 pixel, solid, and we're going to make this one a turquoise. And then we have one more box. So let's go down to our box. And this one's called negative box because we're going to actually have it roll backwards and then go forward. And so we're going to give this one a border, 1 pixel, solid, and we are going to give this one a color of black. And we'll close that. So now we have all of these boxes with individual styles. So now that we have this, the easing CSS saved, I'm going to go back out to my browser. So I'm going to go out to Chrome. I'm going to refresh this page, and now you'll see they each have these little borders on them. So we're ready to start doing some of the next stuff. Before I go into doing all of the transition effects, because they're all a little bit different, we're going to create this one that's going to just create the hover. And remember, I want it to hover as soon as I go into the big box. So that's our timings container box. I want it to, as I hover in and out of this, I want to be able to have it, all of the stuff start acting at once. So I'm going to go over here and we're going to go, this is an ID, so timings container hover dot box. Okay, I'm going to close that style right away so I don't forget to later. And we're going to give it a, this is what it's going to look like after everything is done transitioning. So they're all going to transition over, and a few of these elements are going to take place. So we're going to give them now a background color that is going to be white. We're going to have the font change colors so that it is black. We're going to change the border radius so that it's actually not even just rounding the corners of the boxes. They're going to be pretty much, they're going to be circles because we're rounding the border by 30 pixels. And if you recall, if we go up here, they're 60 pixels. So they're going to be half of that. If we're rounding half of it is 30, it's going to become a circle. So we're going to go border radius 30 and margin left, because we're going to move this across the box. So we're going to move it by 420 pixels. So now we have our hover action, but we haven't done any of the transitions, so we can actually see what's happening with this easing. So let's go back to Chrome again, and let's refresh this page. And if I mouse over, notice it just instantly jumps from one side to the next. So you're seeing we're going from these boxes with a dark background and white text and their colored borders, which all the colored borders all still remain. And if we mouse over the box, they all jump over 420 pixels. That's the margin. So this part, this is the margin that we gave it. And now we've given the border radius, it's gone to circles. But notice it does it instantaneously. Now we need to put in those transitions so that we can make it go nice and smooth all the way across. And this is where the timing functions, or ease, comes into play, because they're each going to be done a little bit differently. I'm back in my easing.css file, and I'm going to go work my way all the way up to the ease.box. We're going to start with the first one and adjust its transition. So we're going to use the word transition, and we want to transition all things, meaning the shape, the margin, the background color, the text color. That's why we're going to use the word all here. And we're going to do it in the matter of 4 seconds. And it's just ease. So we're going to specify this property is ease. And we're going to have that do it in a 0-second delay. So this is our first one. Let's go back over to our browser. And I'm going to refresh. And now watch what happens when I mouse over. See how nicely that transitions? And when I hover back off of the box, it goes back. Where the rest of them are all just going instantly. This one with ease is just going in slow, we said 4 seconds. Now let's keep working on the rest of these. I'm going to just simply copy and paste this into the ease in. So you can see I just put it under border, but we need to change where this says ease, because remember we're going to use ease in, and to signify that it's ease-in. I'm going to save. Every other setting remains the same. I'm now going to go back out to my browser and refresh, and we will see the first two, and notice they're slightly different. So when you do ease in, it starts slow and then speeds up. Okay, we're going to just keep working our way through these, and I'm not going to necessarily bounce back and forth every time. You can go ahead and do that as you do each of these one by one. So I am going to go and paste that in. We're now at ease out. So likewise, I just copied the transition from up above, but instead of ease in, we want ease out. Now we want ease in out. So I'm going to copy again. I'm going to go back down here and paste, and we're going to do ease in and out by doing the hyphen. and we're going to do linear. And I already had that one copied, so I'm just going to paste. And instead of ease, we're going to do linear. Oops, we got to get rid of the word in. So linear. And we're going to click save. Now I am going to pop back over to my browser and refresh. And we're going to have 5 of these that go marching across at different rates. This is what easing does. Now we're going to play with custom and awesome, the last 2 on the bottom. These are both custom, and these use these Bezier curves. And what we're going to be doing is we're using some mathematical numbers that control this. So under custom box, we're still going to use the word transition. That part stays the same. And after that, we still want to do all, and we're still going to do it in 4 seconds. But we're going to type in cubic Bezier, and I'm just going to let Dreamweaver pop this up, and we're going to fill in these numbers. So you're seeing it's giving some coordinates as it moves across, and these are x, y coordinates. And this is the mathematical part. So we're going to make x1, 1, y1 we're going to change to 0.835, x2 we're going to change to 0, and y2 we are going to change to 0.945. I'm going to click save. Now we're going to go and see what happens to that custom box. That's the one that's near the bottom. So let's watch what happens. Do you see that? Okay, it starts out quite slow, and then it hits a certain point, and then it zooms across. And what it's basically doing is it's saying to travel along the certain axis at a certain speed, right? And this is why we are adjusting it. And so you can put in these different points to control how much that change. Let's go do our last one, which is negative, and that's we're going to send something backwards first. So we're going to take our transition, just like we did, and we're going to do all, and 4 seconds, oops, seconds, not x, cubic Bezier, and we're going to change this first number. We want it to go along the x-axis backwards first. I'm sorry, no, along the y-axis, sorry. Okay, so this one we're going to leave at 1. And then we're going to roll this backwards. So I'm going to do minus 0.53. And this next one, we're going to do it 0.405. And y2 at 1.425. So these are my new coordinates. So let's go see what happens to my negative box, the one that's listed as awesome. I'm going to refresh again, watch it tip backwards. There we go. Let's mouse out. And see it, notice it has that little bit of an extra. It has that extra bounce to it. That's because we've had that negative included in there. And I just realized that I am not doing this correctly. I forgot to close. It's always good to debug yourself, right? I forgot to close each of these with the semicolon. And just to be consistent, if you remember, it'll default to 0. But I'm going to put this in. This is the delay. This just simply means it'll start right at the beginning. So we could always just pause this a bit, but we're going to get into delay in the next exercise. So let's just fix that. It shouldn't affect anything as to how we're performing. There's one more piece that I want to do is I want to make these boxes kind of roll so they visually look like they're rolling. So we're going to create a transform. And the transform is going to allow us to rotate. So it's like transition, but it's actually changing the direction. There's 2D and 3D transforms. What we are doing is actually a 2D transforming, meaning it's staying in the same plane of existence. So we're going to transform. We're going to use the word rotate, and see it automatically gives us these little parentheses, and inside the parentheses we're going to say we want it to roll 720 DEG, which stands for degrees. So this is harkening back to math. This is all mathematics. So it's going to roll 720 degrees, which means 2 full circles, because each circle is 360 degrees. Let's go see what happens. All right, back in our browser. I'm going to refresh, and now watch them tip and roll as they turn from boxes to circles. And see how they're all a little bit different. This is just an exercise so you can see what happens when we use ease versus ease in, ease out, etc., etc. And there you have it. What I do encourage you to play around with is play around with some of the Bezier curve numbers, and look at the web link that I provide so that you can understand a little bit better about what these numbers are doing. Go ahead and change some of these other features. Remember, we're doing a transition all. So look at those properties that we're changing. So we're changing it from a box of 60 by 60. Maybe you change that, change the background colors. Play around with some of these things. Change the speed, change the delay. We will get into delay, but that doesn't mean you can't do that for this. So you can play with those different things. And then once you're done, be sure that you just save it, and that each of your files, the HTML and the CSS, are located within that easing folder. That's it for exercise 3.